Hello and welcome back to Man vs Film. Happy 2021, it's a new year and, well, let's face it, it can't be any worse than last year, but we're going to start the year off with 10 fantastic movies for you to check out this month. So let's get started. Number 10, Keanu. Clarence is a conservative suburbanite with a wife and child. His cousin, Rael, is a bong-smoking slacker. Then one day, Rael finds a kitten on his doorstep and immediately takes it in. He names the kitten Keanu. A few weeks later, in case of mistaken identity, members of the Bips drug gang break into his house, ransack it and take Keanu. Rael and Clarence set off into Blups territory to recover the precious cat. Peele and Key star in this movie that is wonderfully silly. It's got some terrific action, it's got a ludicrous plot behind it, it's remarkably funny, and it managed to find the balance between humour and really obnoxious action while poking fun at a lot of tropes of these kind of movies. This is the kind of movie that a lot of people wouldn't have noticed, but now Jordan Peele is getting really famous with Get Out and Us. Maybe it's time to go back and check something a little bit on the lighter side of his material. Number 9, Countdown. When a nurse downloads an app that claims to predict the moment a person will die, it tells her she only has 3 days to live. With the clock ticking and a figure haunting her, she must find a way to save her life before time runs out. I shied away from Countdown when it was released. It just didn't look that great, and admittedly, it's not going to set the heather alight, but it is a really fun movie. It's that quite simply goes into a lot of the tropes of horror movies, but I liked the characters. I actually liked the way they connected to the main characters anyway. I liked the bad guys and the comeuppance that were coming their way, other than this app and the death that is stalking them. It's fun, it's silly, it is atypical of a lot of horror movies, but it's not terrible, and that's something. Number 8, The Great Outdoors. Big-hearted Chicago family man Chet has brought his family to a lakeside resort area, and although his wife and kids aren't quite excited as he is, Chet has high hopes for the vacation. However, his optimism is sabotaged when his obnoxious brother-in-law Roman drops in unexpectedly, along with a snooty, strange family. John Candy stars as Chet and you get Dan Aykroyd as Roman, and it's these two people just clashing together, which is so much fun. You've got Chet who just wants to have a old-fashioned family holiday, and Chet is all about the big, brash, extravagant items that are flashy sensibilities, and their personalities just clash. But it's the performances that are so much fun, it's the relationships of the characters that really add to the plot, and it's one of those really endearing 80s family comedy movies that, for me, still really holds up. Number 7, Tales from the Lodge. 5 old university pals, now nudging 40, gather for a weekend to scatter the ashes of their friend Jonesy, who drowned himself in the lake 3 years earlier. They settle in for a fun evening, entertaining each other with stories of murder, ghosts, zombies and possessions. But as day turns to night, the gang become aware of another horror story unfolding around them, and this one is real. Tales from the Lodge reminds me a lot of the Amicus movies, the way it has this group of characters stuck in a situation, telling each other tales. They're all wildly different, some are good, some aren't, depending on your sensibilities and your tastes, and it has a nice wraparound story that brings everything together in a really fun manner. Tales from the Lodge is a low-budget British movie with lots of familiar faces that I urge you to check out, because it's one of those ones that's just going to eke under the radar without people really noticing it. Number 6, Frances Ha. Frances lives in New York, but she doesn't really have an apartment. Frances is an apprentice for a dance company, but she's not really a dancer. Frances has a best friend named Sophie, but they aren't speaking anymore. Frances throws herself headlong into her dreams, even as their possible reality dwindles. Frances wants so much more than she has, but lives her life with an unaccountable joy and lightness. Greta Gerwig stars as Frances in Frances Ha, and it's just a wonderful late blooming coming of age movie almost, as we have this woman almost hitting her 30s, starting to realise that the whimsy and the ideas of what her life were going to be now have to make way for a more broader reality and how that sinks in. But it's the effervescent sunshine that comes from Frances's character that just enlightens my mood. I think it's an incredibly fun and engaging movie with an endearing performance from Gerwig, and it is highly recommended. I hope you're enjoying this video. If you would like to support me, there is a link in the description for Patreon where you can go and support me for as little as $1 a month, $1, €1, £1, and it all goes to the running costs of this channel. Thank you for even considering it. Number 5, Ghost in the Shell. In the near future, Major Mira Killian is the first of her kind, a human saved from a terrible crash who is cyber enhanced to be the perfect soldier, devoted to stopping the world's most dangerous criminals. Ghost in the Shell was a remarkable blockbuster, as in it was really good. Although if you compare it with the anime, it's not as great as that, but still it changes enough and makes it relevant enough for modern day to be engaging in a fun action movie. I thought Scarlett Johansson was incredibly fun, so were a lot of the other cast. The action is pretty terrific, and this is one that I go back to often just to switch off and enjoy the cool visuals and the whip-smart storyline. Number 4, Don't Breathe. Rocky, a young woman wanting to start a better life for her and her sister, agrees to take part in the robbery of a house owned by a wealthy blind man with her boyfriend Money and their friend Alex. But when the blind man turns out to be a more ruthless adversary than he seems, the group must find a way to escape his home before they become his latest victims. Fede Alvarez directs this one, and he directs the hell out of it. This becomes a claustrophobic nightmare as we're thrown into a world of silence, as we have this blind man who is an ex-war vet who is more than capable for these young kids, trapping them in the house and hunting them down through his labyrinth-like household. This is one that offers twists, scares, and a bucket load of atmosphere. Number 3, Fearless Hyena. Hing Lung is a youngster living in a remote village with his grandfather who teaches him kung fu. He keeps getting into frights even though his grandfather warns him not to show off his kung fu. Lung, though, is tempted by some thugs he beat up as an act to a master of a kung fu school. This school's name apparently spreads far as an old enemy of Lung's grandfather shows up and attacks him. Lung goes on training with the help of another member of the old gang until he can eventually get revenge for the fallen. Fearless Hyena is Jackie Chan at his best. It is incredibly formulaic with the plot, but it is expertly filled with action. You get to see wonderful choreographed scenes. The standout for me is with his new master when they're having lunch, and it just turns in to some of the most wonderfully choreographed action that I think I've ever seen. I had so much fun with this. Even the humour wasn't overly broad, but it was good enough to add humour without being grating to the actual movie. And those action set pieces are just mind-blowing. Number 2, Bad Words. An adult who has been a school dropout finds a loophole in the regulations and participates in the largest spelling bee in the USA, the Golden Quill. His aim is to take revenge for something done to him in the past. Jason Bateman stars and directs this wonderful movie that nobody seems to have heard of before. It's got this terrific relationship between this young boy and this twisted man-child adult. It has this rather close to the knuckle humour all the way through it, and is just ridiculously funny. Nobody talks about it. Nobody mentions it, and it's just seemingly forgotten. Please go and check this one out. I really want to know your opinions on this film. Number 1, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. In an effort to track down who raped and murdered her daughter, Mildred Hayes has 3 billboards erected outside her town of Ebbing, Missouri. They accuse the sheriff of not doing enough to catch the killer. This causes a largely adverse and diverse reaction amongst the townsfolk, not least of all the sheriff's deputy, the hot-headed Jason Dixon. Oscar-winning movie for a reason. It is wonderful, and it's hard to really pigeon into a genre. It's really funny, it's really thrilling, it has character study moments of dramatic prowess that really hit home, and it's all filled with these amazing actors, and it's one of those movies where it can have you in fits of laughter and then suddenly steal your breath with a really shocking moment that hits home all the harder because of it. Frances McDormand is absolutely electric in the main role here, really driving forth the power of this character. But that's not to say that the rest of the performances are lost. They're not. And to tell you too much about this one would really waste it. And I feel that this must be discovered. I want you to check this out. I hope you enjoy it. So there we have it. 10 fantastic movies for you to check out in January, new year, new list of movies, and let's hope it's going to be a much better year. I hope you find something here that you really liked, something that sparked a bit of interest in you. If I've missed something off my list, or if there is something that should have been on it, let me know in the comment box below, and I'll see you next time on Man v Film.